Hi, I'm Phil Berman from Balance Catamarans. In a previous video, I discussed the challenges of producing and operating a truly green, fossil-free catamaran, and I explained why that dream of operating an all-electric voyaging catamaran without any form of diesel generation remains impractical with our current level of technology unless it's operating as a day sailor that can return to the dock each night to recharge. Of course, unless we're prepared to live a really Spartan life at sea. The issue is that lithium batteries are simply not yet a dense enough energy carrier to allow a catamaran to motor very far or fast without a massive heavy bank of batteries. And even with a deck and coach top and davits laden with solar panels, though they too are not yet potent enough to charge lithium batteries with the rapidity required for any sort of continuous motoring, even at very low speeds. For this reason, at Balance, we currently only advocate for dual diesel engines with the high output alternator generators, such as the integrals we've championed for years here, or advanced marine hybrid propulsion systems that marry a diesel engine with an electric motor in combination with significant arrays of solar. All propulsion systems, everything has advantages and disadvantages. Let me just first discuss what are known as serial hybrid systems. These utilize dual standalone electric motors positioned in each hull and the aft bays, and they run off of relatively large house battery banks that are charged by one or two standalone diesel generators. These systems have actually been around since the early 2000s and were first used, I think, for the most part by Lagoon Catamarans on their Lagoon 42 experiment, starting, I think it was in about 2007. During that period, there were several companies offering such systems for catamarans that have since gone out of business, including Solomon Systems and Glacier Bay. As a yacht broker, during this time, I witnessed these failures firsthand and the many unhappy customers who allowed themselves to sort of be used as guinea pigs to test them. These early failures stemmed from a range of factors, including problems with the electric controllers, reliance on one large generator that could and often would fail. But the largest issue, I think, was that they tended too often to undersize the electric motors and generators used to charge them based on the mistaken belief that the increased torque of an electric motor allowed for far lower horsepower electric motors than diesels. Many of these early boats could only motor at 4 or 5 knots in calm seas, but when they had to push into any sort of headwinds, they practically came to a stop. For this reason, they were unsafe and unreliable, and when a problem arose, finding anyone skilled enough to repair them was difficult, to say the least. In the end, most of these serial hybrid experiments led to very costly refits back to dual diesel engines. I recall quite painfully assisting a friend of mine, a guy that I became close with, who had purchased a new Alibi performance catamaran that had been built for him in Thailand. Every time he tried to dock his boat with his hybrid, electric diesel system, he'd try and stop his boat, and then a breaker would hit, and there he'd be in a marina getting blown around without the ability to stop his boat or turn his boat. So suffice to say that boating wasn't much fun for him because he was scared to death to dock his boat in winds over 10 knots. Eventually, I just admonished him to toss out the electric motors, stick on a few diesels, and the moment we did that, his happiness returned and he began to enjoy his boat again. The long and the short is reliability ultimately is super important in anything that we have on a boat. In the end, I guess the great lesson of my 55 years as a sailor is that whenever you do on a boat, you've got to strive to make it as reliable and repairable as you possibly can, which is easier said than done, I'm afraid, because a voyaging yacht is a complex floating ecosystem that's bouncing about in the most corrosive environment on Earth. I mean, what takes place between the two hulls of this catamaran, this modern liveaboard catamaran, is considerably more complex than what goes on between the walls of a modern home. Despite all the hard knocks taken in the effort to electrify catamaran propulsion over the years, a few companies have emerged with enough learning to overcome these early hybrid conniptions. I think I'd say that the most enduring and best serial hybrid company for smaller catamarans, in my view, is a company called Oceanvolt from Europe. They've invested significant time and capital to design reliable electric motor systems that run entirely off lithium batteries, which are charged by either a single or dual DC diesel generator. They also offer a regenerative power system utilizing drag over the propellers. We've never been opposed to installing Oceanvolt systems on our catamarans for those who request them, so long as they understand clearly the pros and cons, going in. We caution, however, that catamarans do carry a great deal of windage, and when you're trying to motor a catamaran into the wind, they can really slow down and they need a lot of power. And we feel that whenever you're looking at electric motors for a catamaran that require generators, both the motors and the generators must be sized pretty large to propel the catamarans at good speeds into headwinds. We also stress that a single generator serial hybrid system produces risks because it lacks the redundancy we prefer to see for voyaging sailors. Regardless, Oceanvolt systems cost considerably more to install, and they do add a measure of complexity to any boat over dual diesel engines. The more popular and growing type of hybrid system are called parallel hybrid systems. These are growing a lot more popular today. What they do is they marry a dedicated diesel motor to a dedicated electric motor. Either the diesel engine or the electric motor can propel the boat on its own, and either can operate independently of the other. These kinds of systems that they offer really good power redundancy, although generally you find that you can only motor short distances on the electric motors alone on most of these designs, unless you really load up on additional batteries. In the end, it's always the diesels you rely on to motor far or fast in a parallel hybrid system, due to the pound-for-pound energy storage advantage diesels carry over lithium batteries, as I've talked before. Setting aside for a moment whether any hybrid solution is greener than dual diesel engines with high-output alternators, which I kind of suspect they aren't unless the boats are being plugged in every night as day sailors, all hybrid systems or parallel systems come with increased cost and added complexity. And this, in many ways, is the thing that we've struggled with the most at Balance when advising adventure sailors who dream to explore remote islands and locations around the world, is that repair services and technical services aren't really available in many of the places to which they wish to go. Keeping things clean, simple, and reliable is a basic mantra we carry at Balance, so the advantages of straying from easily repaired and serviced tried and true products must be quite significant for us to take the leap when adopting new technology. I mean, nothing's more dissatisfying to me as the owner of the company to have a customer stranded somewhere because something isn't working. Whether you opt to get conventional dual diesels or a serial or parallel hybrid system, you also have to decide if you wish to live with the advantages and disadvantages of either straight shaft engines or sail drives. If you're a member of the convicted minority who are convinced that straight shafts offer more advantages than disadvantages compared to sail drives, I'm afraid that Balance is decidedly not for you. At Balance, we're ardent believers in sail drives over straight shafts for our catamarans under 60 feet for a lot of reasons, and these are as follows. One of them is that we like to keep our engines out of the living spaces whenever possible. It's quieter inside the boat when you're motoring if the engines are out of the living spaces. You do not get diesel engine smells inside your living quarters. You do not need to pull your bed apart every time you want to access your engines for service or repair. You do not need to sleep over vibrating engines when you need to sleep and motor in an aft cabin. And the other advantages are that you don't lose 3 to 4 horsepower at the prop as you do on a straight shaft, because your props on a sail drive are tackling the water at a full vertical angle, whereas in a shaft engine you're not. So you may have a 40 horsepower shaft drive boat, but you're really only effectively getting 36 to 37 horsepower at the prop. So your engines in fact become weaker in a sense. The other advantage is you don't need to care for dripless seals or cutlass bearings as you do on a straight shaft. You do not need to have your engines carefully aligned and realigned by a professional with a laser to avoid your engines operating even noisier than they already do using shafts. Shafts are always, in my experience, offer more vibration and higher noise levels than the sail drives. The other big advantage of having a sail drive in a dedicated engine room is that even if you hit something and knocked your sail drive off or your rudder, broke off and you had water coming into your engine rooms, the water isn't really going to rise in that dedicated space more than a foot or two. So it's really just at the lower engine block. Your boat is still going to float perfectly fine, even if your engine room had a leak or a hole in it. I'm of course aware of those who passionately argue that straight shafts are superior to sail drives, but I believe these opinions were formed on early sail drive technology that produced a very unfortunate set of problems. Slipping cone clutches that allowed the props to free spin and not engage during gear transfers, such as on the old SD50 Yanmar sail drive, and the inability to change sail drive fluid from inside the boat if you had a compromised seal, which required that you actually had to haul your boat anytime you had a sail drive seal that was allowing salt water to come into your drive. With the recent Yanmar SD60 sail drives, there's no longer any need to haul your boat immediately to replace a seal that may be compromised, because you can change your sail drive oil from inside the boat, keep the fluids emulsified. Therefore, you really can wait until your next haul out to change your seals if for whatever reason they're compromised. It's also a misnomer that replacing cutlass bearings or dripless seals on straight shafts is any less costly or maintenance-free on straight shafts than the cost of replacing sails on a sail drive. And often enough, you need a real expert to pull your shafts and realign them with the laser to limit vibration on your shaft engine. So given our strong belief in the superiority of sail drives for our catamarans under 60 feet, it has taken us a while at Balance to land on a parallel hybrid solution we wish to adopt. Our criteria were threefold: a system that would allow us to use the only Yanmar engines so that our customers could get parts and service globally from a major marine supplier. I don't like selling products where if you're stranded in some place, you can't easily get service or part support. The second thing is that you could use that Yanmar 60 sail drive, which comes from Yanmar, which has proven to be very quiet and reliable and easily serviceable. And the third was that we could work with a supplier of the hybrid system that would be an innovation partner with us and offer stellar service and support of our customers drawn to hybrid solutions. And so it is that we are proud to announce that the new Integral eDrive is Balance's preferred provider for parallel hybrid propulsion. In the next video, I'm going to discuss the eDrive system in detail with Integral CEO Trevor Howard, and why we've chosen to adopt it for our catamarans, and why we're really excited to be working again with Integral, because they've just been great partners to us for the last 5 years. So, till I see you next time, stay in balance.